Bless y'all. The best variety of gospel music is 1620 a.m. WFLT Flint. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. I want to welcome all the listeners from Let's Talk About It with Dr. Thrill Kell and Dr. Reginald Flynn. Good morning, guys. And so,
You're live on the air.
okay. Thank you. Can you hear me, Sister Dolores?
I can hear you very well, sir.
All right. Well, great. I want to welcome all the listeners from Let's Talk About It with Reverend Thrill Kell and Dr. Reginald Flynn. We have a great broadcast for you this morning. On the phone with us today, we're going to be talking about some of the things that's been going on inside the city of Flint. But we want to make sure that we reach out to those who are in need of prayer and those that are in need of just a helping hand as it relates to our spiritual being here. And Pastor Hawkins, that you are here with us this morning, if you'd be so kind to guide us in prayer.
Good morning, Mayor. Yes, sir. Eternal God, we thank you for this opportunity to pray and know that you blessed us with. We pray you'll continue to guide us and keep us during these times and continue to just give us wisdom and knowledge that we not only be able to help ourselves, but help others to the greatest degree. Continue to bless the mayor and all those who are in elected capacity, that they continue to work together for the common good of the people, and that we may not only unite, but we be better than we were before this pandemic and all these other things that have arisen. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Today we have Dr. Lawrence Reynolds on to talk about the pandemic and what is still going on throughout our community and throughout our country. Also, Dr. Sheldon will be joining in on that conversation as well. And Pastor Hawkins is also here with us. But also, we've been talking about in the city of Flint, people have been upset about the garbage collection and the yard waste collection inside the city of Flint. Our provider, which is Republican Service, and we have Gary Hicks on from Republic Service, which is the supervisor manager over this jurisdiction for waste collection. And he wanted to talk to the public directly about the things that were going on over the past 3 weeks with garbage collection. I think today is the day that they're back on schedule and the commitment to move forward with the city of Flint and its residents to make sure that that what we experienced over the last few weeks will never happen to us again. Good morning, Gary.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning.
Good morning, God.
Yep, and I know you wanted to address the Flint public, as it relates to the our last engagements over the last couple of weeks, and also provide an apology, and then our actions moving forward.
Yes, sir. And again, thank you for this opportunity to come and speak directly to you guys. You have not only my apologies, but you have Republic's apologies. What transpired is completely unacceptable, and for that we are truly sorry for what we've put you guys through. I have spent all week driving through the city to make sure that our commitment to get especially the compost cleaned up from all city streets, everyone. And we've done a very good job. Our commitment to the mayor and to the city to have that process completed by today, almost. There's probably 45 minutes left in one area, and then we will have that done. We will start on Monday with a clean slate. The exciting news is that we have several trucks out in the city addressing bulk items and blight items. So we didn't talk a lot about those just because it really wasn't something that was super hot on the press. Compost and the leaves were, but we wanted to make sure that we made a big impact as part of our commitment to the city and as part of our cleanup to improve the lives of those residents that are affected by some of these blight piles and the bulk items. We want to do that right away. I can tell you that the bulk item collection, we're going to have a separate truck running around the city for the foreseeable future to ensure that we're getting the stuff off the ground in a timely manner. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to come and apologize directly to the city of Flint, its residents, the businesses, everyone that was affected by our delay.
Well, Gary, I want to thank you for that apology to the residents of the city of Flint, because it's very big of you and your company, and I do know your heart, and you are a man of faith as well. And so, we had an unfortunate engagement over the last few weeks, but now that we are looking at our partnership and renewing our partnership moving forward, and the commitment that you and I both and that your company has to the residents of the city of Flint, I want to thank you for that partnership. But you know what they always say, Gary, to men of faith, praise is in the act of your actions. And so the actions of you and the company moving forward is going to be actually show what we are to be expecting and how we are actually operating in this community. Does anybody, I know Pastor Hawkins, Dr. Verholden, Dr. Reynolds are all residents of the city of Flint. Do you have a question for Gary?
Mayor, I'd just like to ask Gary, and again, like you said, thank him for being on. We know that with the delays and not being specific to areas, but are there any items that people shouldn't put out in hopes to get it picked up, or like large items and things like that? Because I've heard that in certain areas large items is picked up, in certain areas large items are left.
It really, proper preparation of your material at the curb is for us the most important thing to getting the items cleaned up or collected. When people just loosely throw clothes, food items at the curb, it is very difficult for the driver to pick those up. Putting items in a bag, in a can, or loose in a bag at the curb will ensure proper collection. Bulk items, City of Flint residents are allowed 3 bulk items to be collected on their collection day. If it's more than 3, they're asked to call the Blight Department, or I'm sorry, the DPW department, and they will get those scheduled on a bulk route where we send a separate truck out. Just like with the leaf collection, we did fall behind on bulk, and that's why I was happy to let you guys know that as you're out and about in the city today, you're going to see several trucks running around, and their job right now is out to collect the bulk and collect some of the blight that we can. And obviously the blight is something that we are working very closely with the mayor on, and can't wait to get into the programs that he's got coming. So proper preparation, bagged or in a can, make it so much easier for proper collection. And then I'll add one more thing with the bed bug situation, not just in your community, but every community. We ask that those mattresses and chairs or couches that are infested be placed in a bag to ensure the health and safety of not only your residents, but our drivers also. If they're bagged, then we can collect them right in home.
Right. And also that partnership goes along with the residents of the city of Flint. Now, we have to make sure that our garbage is placed in a can and or bag. The bag has to be secured. The cans cannot exceed a 50-pound maximum. Is that correct, Gary? The 50-pound,
yes, sir.
50-pound maximum. And any cardboard products has to be broken down so it can be collected easier as those drivers go through. Remember, the drivers are people as well. And they have, concerns about their health and welfare and safety as well. So we all have to have a partnership. We all have to be accountable to our partners. And so as residents, as a municipality, and as a company picking up our yard waste and also garbage, we have to make sure that we do the things that's necessary for everybody to do their part of the partnership effectively. Dr. Verholden and Dr. Reynolds, do you have any questions? You are both Flint residents.
Yes, I needed to hear those instructions repeated, and I especially appreciate the framework in which you put it. The men and women who are doing sanitation are our neighbors, our brothers and sisters, and we should respect the guidelines to protect their health and safety.
Absolutely, absolutely. We want to definitely remember that. And Dr. Froholden, rounding off with you with our Republic Waste Collection Company inside the city of Flint.
No, I appreciate the insight and the information and the, call to action and the attention. These are vital city services. So it's, somewhat reassuring to know that this is being taken seriously and residents are going to have what they need. I think especially because of the pandemic and all of the other just societal unrest that's happening, having our basic services be functioning optimally, and residents having what they need and knowing what to do to keep those services in place is really important. People are under a tremendous amount of stress and pressure right now. And so having our basic services operating optimally is just critically important. So I appreciate the coming out, the transparency, and for all of our sakes, I hope that we get this figured out and have those services restored fully and properly.
Right. And once again, when we talk about the partnerships and the responsibilities of all of us to fulfill the things that we have to do. And I just want to say to Gary, we have had much dialogue around this issue. It helped to be both of us are a man of faith, and we were able to discuss the issues and the problems that residents were facing inside the city. And so I want to just continue that partnership in a full and wholesome way. And Gary, continue to encourage the workers that are working on those trucks, helping us, and you will be a strong partner in the elimination of blight in this community. And Gary, I give you a couple more words here. You were welcome to stay on the rest of the broadcast with us as we move into the next issue that we have facing the city of Flint and improving the quality of life for all of us. Gary.
Again, thank you, sir. I truly appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak directly to everyone. The mayor knows me well. I can tell you that our commitment to the city has never been stronger. I'm proud of Republic that when things got tough, we brought in additional equipment, additional people. That was the only way we were going to get caught up. And Republic stepped up and said, tell me what you need. They gave it to us. And that's why we're at a point where we're at now. And their commitment to follow through that this never happened again. So again, I just want to say, I apologize. I truly mean it. And I know the mayor knows he knows my heart in this, and the relationship between Republic and the city of Flint is extremely important to us. And I never, ever, ever want this to happen again, and I will not allow it to. So again, thank you for this opportunity.
All right, Gary, and thank you again. You're more than welcome to stay on the rest of the call as we shift and transition into our next subject matter. But thank you as well. Shifting into our next subject matter, now we have the Black Lives Advisory Council that I have established for our Flint Police Department to make sure law enforcement the jobs better and how they patrol the city better. I think we have a lot of fine police officers, men and women both, and we're getting better every day, but we want to be proactive as we always have been in the city of Flint, moving forward with the ideas and the best practices. And now the process has been, the deadline was closed yesterday for people to apply for that. They'll be going through and reviewing the members, looking for members of that body to be filled. And so Pastor Jeffery Hawkins is the only selection that I will have made, and he will be the chairperson of the Black Lives Matter Advisory Council. And Pastor Hawkins is just not a pastor at Prince of Peace Church, but he is a strong, lifelong member of this community. He's engaged in many things, from our ceasefire objectives that we had about maybe a decade ago. He was a key member of that program, as well as he's a mediator for law enforcement and other social organizations and people alike. Also, he provides training for law enforcement He is a trained professional to do so, and I thought he was a great pick to be the chairperson of that. And also Dr. Furholden can chime in as well, because in Baltimore, this type of committee and these type of activities has been in Baltimore, and she was a part of that also. So Pastor Hawkins, can you talk a little bit about moving forward? I know you don't have the final list of all the applicants for that body, but can you talk about the process moving forward, and then we'll talk about the activities in which we want to engage in after that selection process is done.
Absolutely, Mayor, and thank you again for allowing me to assist. And we know that we're going to pick individuals between 9 and 11 total. And obviously the objective is to, one, be able to review the law and to know what's expected from not only law enforcement, but for community as equal. After which, we will look at situations that may arise and knowing the proper channels of how to not only dissect those issues, but then where do those issues go from there, just to make sure that our community is represented well. Certainly not to hold officers no more than what they're supposed to do, but no less is equal. And so we're looking forward to it. We know that this vetting process, or at least the picking process, will be a couple of weeks out, and then after which we will start engaging in the meetings and get the logistics of it down packed so we can proceed from there.
Right. And one of the basic requirements, we want to make sure people understand that, this is about Black Lives Matter, and it's about the Flint Police Department and the way they patrol. And so it's going to be restricted to Flint residents, and mostly or in total. But we want to make sure we let people understand this is about Flint. And so people have a vested interest, not to say that you don't have a vested interest if you do not live in the community, but definitely people who live in the community have more of a vested interest. And we're going to push to Dr. Furholden, because in Baltimore, I know that she played a role in that as well.
Yeah, I co-founded what's called the African American Police Council, and we were big advocates for the development of a community policing division, and somewhat of a reallocation of resources, review of administrative data, review of particular problems and opportunities that we saw in our police department. And as you know, Baltimore faces tremendous rates of gun violence. Even during the pandemic, it is the one key metric that has remained unchanged. The number of shootings in Baltimore has not changed in the face of the pandemic, where you, in theory, should have less people out. So the only thing that I wanted to say is, first, just bravo, Mayor Neeley, for, implementing this. And I really appreciate Pastor Hawkins for willing to take up the mantle and lead. We've seen this big movement around defunding the police. And I think a lot of people maybe don't quite understand what that is. And there's this movement now around both defunding and disbanding, and so the defunding is really the altering and changing how they receive funds, some divestment and maybe reinvestment of those funds. I think that is important, because if we think about the sort of main mission of law enforcement, which is to protect and serve, the goal is to just make sure that there are provisions in place for communities and for law enforcement to fulfill on that mission. The problem is that law enforcement has a lot of, and not just Flint, but globally, has a lot of incentive for aiding and abetting wrongdoing. People are actually incentivized. One of the things we realized in Baltimore is the metrics for police officers' success oftentimes is hinged on how much revenue they generate. Baltimore literally had revenue planned from seizures and searches and things like that. We call that plunder, when you extract wealth and resources out of the community and then divert it over to the police department. And the reality of it is, when we look, what we saw is that this was the pathway to promotion for police officers. So I really encourage this group that we really do kind of a systematic evaluation of ourselves, that we, pay attention to sort of what's happening on this larger scale. But the reason I think this advisory council that you put in place is so important, and I appreciate that you sort of honed it in on residents and people who are within the city of Flint, who are the people that are going to be impacted by this. It's our job to do the fearless inventory and say, what are our problems? What are our gaps? Where have we sort of maligned the mission of protect and serve? And where have we put these really perverse and gross incentives in place for police officers, many of whom raised their hand for the job because they wanted to serve, but then they've been incentivized to operate some other way. So the idea that we will do that locally and that the community will have a real voice at the table. You know, it is so shocking to me that when you say Black Lives Matter, that a lot of people hear only Black Lives Matter. And that's not what Black Lives Matter is about. Black Lives Matter is because we can see from our society that there's a lower value placed on the Black lives of Black people. So I love this model. I love this approach. I'm really, really excited about this. And I think Flint has an opportunity to really fine tune and develop a model that is community participatory on how we can do this well.
Right. And there's a total of 64 applicants that applied. The deadline was yesterday. And this model, you know, this is not something that we put together for show, because of the focus of the American population has been done moving in this thrust. This is something that we're going to be moving here in the city of Flint forward to actually improve the quality of policing that we do in our communities. So this is not window dressing. And so the board in its inception is going to be a cross section of ages and educational tools that's going to be added to the recipe for this a recipe for success. That's what we're going to call it, a recipe for success. And everybody's going to provide element of a very good ingredient to that recipe, as Dr. Verholden said. But we want to have best practices, but also it's going to increase police activity as it relates to better engagement with the public, just not for Black lives, because once you implement more training, more de-escalation tactics, and those type of things, it improves policing for everyone that resides inside the jurisdiction where those police officers are going to be patrolling. And so Dr. Reynolds is our senior person here on this call, meaning that he has a lot of wisdom and intelligence and intellect, and also geographically, he's come from New York and a couple of the different other places where he worked professionally, but he's seen a lot. And Dr. Reynolds, you know, through the time from the Black Panther Party through Malcolm and Martin, communities have evolved, and we have some of the same type of stresses in our community that we're facing today. Can you talk about the implementation of such a program and what do you think it should bring? Dr. Reynolds? He's maybe trying to mess around with his mute button there. So we'll go back to Pastor Hawkins while we wait on Dr. Reynolds to engage us. Pastor Hawkins, you there?
Yes, sir. I'm here there.
Yep. So you have 64 applicants, and we'll get the final list to you today, so you can begin the measurements of how we're going to go forth and select. So just to do a quick roll call here, I know I lost one caller here. I didn't hear from Dr. Reynolds. Gary, are you still with us?
Yes, sir.
Yep. So we have just Dr. Reynolds as a byproduct of that. So I think Dr. Reynolds fell off the call, and we'll try to get him back here shortly. But go ahead, Pastor. Talk a little bit about the cross range that you're looking for. And I believe, Dr. Verholden, I thought I saw your name in the 64 applications. Is that correct?
I threw my hat right on in that ring, because the thing you're pointing to, we keep talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, but a lot of people don't understand what that means. So diversity is racial and ethnic diversity, but it's also diversity in thought. It's diversity in perspective. It's diversity in lived experience. It's diversity in age. What young people see as the need for transformation of how we police and what community looks like in relationship with the police may have a very different perspective than somebody who is my age or Dr. Reynolds' age. You know, what it might look like from somebody coming from the faith community might look very different from somebody coming from the health sector or the health community or business. And so I love this idea of you talking about this sort of right recipe and having real diversity around this table and equity, right? So you say there's going to be about 9 to 11 seats sitting around this table. That's a good sized table where we should be able to get good diversity and thought around that table. And then the whole thing about it being inclusive, that there was a fair and transparent process for people to raise their hand and say, I'm interested. I want to take up the mantle. So like the way this is going so far, I think we're right on the money.
Right now in Baltimore, to help us and guide us through that process. And we have Dr. Reynolds back via cell phone on another line. So Dr. Reynolds, thank you for coming back to us on the cell phone. I don't know. I need to get you a real landline phone with a real cord on it.
Well, I'd appreciate that, Mayor. What would you like me to talk about?
Well, very quickly, because we're going to probably go into more of it during our Facebook Burst program. And so we'll jump into that. But we definitely want to talk about the pandemic and how it's still amongst us. We want to definitely don't forget about that. We have about 3 minutes to talk about that piece. And then in the Facebook Burst program, because Gary is still with us, we'll do a little bit more on waste collection and then go through these topics again. But Dr. Reynolds, go ahead and let us know where we are with this pandemic and what we are still facing. And we have still about maybe 2.5 minutes.
I will put us where we are in the framework of the governor's plan for recovery. And we are in Region 1, which includes basically southeastern Michigan, Detroit, Pontiac, Flint, along I-75 and some parts of I-69. We are now in phase 4, according to the governor's announcement. And that puts us in the middle phase. And when I say middle phase, it doesn't mean we're halfway out. It means we are in a phase that will last as long as it lasts. As long as we can flatten the curve and decrease the number of new cases, decrease the number of deaths, we can stay in that phase before we go to phase 5. But whatever phase we are in, if the number of cases increases, if the number of deaths increases, we go back to the previous phase or we don't move forward. It has been announced that we'll do on the 15th, barbershops and salons will open, and Lord knows I need it. However, remember, you still must be prudent, no matter what phase we go through. When you go outside, put on a mask. You wash your hands frequently, especially when you move from building to building. We must clean our doorknobs in our houses, and we have to supervise each other, because every decision we make affects the people in our household and affects our neighbors. So we must be careful. Thank God there have been less than 10 deaths per day in Genesee County for the last 12 days, and actually there were 0 in the last 24 hours, 0 deaths. But that's because we followed the instructions about maintaining that 6-foot physical separation. We have worn our masks. We have washed our hands. And remember, don't let a fool convince you that none of this is necessary. Because the only way we got to this point, and the only way we will move forward, is continue to do these things. And understand, this is serious. Over 200,000 deaths are projected in the United States, and that's by July. We don't need to add to this if we hold the line. And I want to thank my friends and neighbors. I want to thank the mayor for his leadership and the governor for his leadership, because it is a solid plan as long as we do our part and we follow the plan.
Right, and we want to make sure we get ready for the Facebook Burst program, but I do want to give big shout outs to Mrs. Sharon Riley. She was in the hospital for more than 2.5 months. One of the first cases of COVID recognized in the city of Flint and Genesee County, but she's home now, and we want to send her all the best wishes and our love. Sharon, welcome back home. We love you. Stand by, guys, for our Facebook Burst program. Gary, stay with us, and we'll be right back with our Facebook audience here shortly. Thank you. Love you, Mom. Okay, Dr. Reynolds, I'm going to add you back to the regular call with the group. All right. Hold on, guys, for the Facebook Burst program. We're going to move forward with that here shortly.
Mayor, have a great day.
Well, thank you. God bless.
All right, and thank you for tuning in to the
Let me add Dr. Reynolds.
Hello, this is Lon.
Okay, hold on. I'm joining you back. Okay, guys, we're back and we're ready to begin the Facebook Burst program, and we're going to do a restart, just making sure that people are aware of what we're going and what we're engaging in. Currently, Facebook, we have on the call with us right now Gary Hicks from Republic Services, which is a waste provider, collection provider inside the city of Flint, and he wanted to deliver a message to the Flint residents, and he wanted to do it in first party. And I thank you, Gary, for being here. And go ahead and address our Facebook audience as well as the Flint residents.
Morning again, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for this opportunity to address the city of Flint. And this is really cool to be on Facebook. I think this might be the first time I've ever been on Facebook like this. I want to start out by saying you have not only my personal apologies, but the apologies of Republic Services as a whole for what we've put you guys through these last couple of weeks. We got behind, and I am happy to report that as of, well, it should be just about now, we will be completely caught up with collection in the city. And we are transitioning from the cleanup of what was left behind to now being proactive in bulk item and blight collection. I'm proud that we brought in lots of additional resources. Republic as a company, when they heard our pleas for help, they jumped right on board and brought in multiple additional trucks and brought in multiple additional employees to help get this cleaned up so that we never, ever, ever allow this to happen again. And I can tell you that is the commitment from Republic and myself, that we will never get into this position again. And again, I thank you for this opportunity to come directly to the people, apologize, and let them know that the partnership between Republic and the city is extremely important, extremely, and that we promise to never do this again.
We thank you for that, and we look forward to a long, prosperous relationship and a partnership with Republic Service. I know you are going to be engaging in the blight fight, is what we're titling it. It's going to be a war on blight moving forward in this community. So far this year, we've picked up probably 2 more tons of garbage from our streets. Now, in the partnership in the blight fight, I want residents to understand this. Grow from tree. Beds don't grow from lawns. Someone's dumping blight in our community. We will institute a program where we're going to be asking residents to report those who are illegally dumping in our community. Our community is not a garbage can. Blight just doesn't appear. Someone is putting blight in our community, as much as beds, dressers, and other debris, but also commercial blight, which is tires being dumped in vacant houses. We're finding all that, and I can guarantee you this. We will be policing this heavy. You will, for those individuals that's doing blight, dumping blight in this community, we will hit you with the full enforcement of the law. I can guarantee you, and for those that want to enlist in the service of trying to stop these individuals, cash rewards will be given for those that report people that's blighting our community. And I want to simplify it by just asking and telling people this. We have our homes that we live in. You wouldn't allow anybody to come into your home to dump a pile of trash into your home, right into your living room. That wouldn't be allowed. It wouldn't be tolerated. Flint is our home, and we should not allow people to dump garbage in our home. And so we should all be equally offended by those that will dump garbage in our community. And so we will have new additions to our blight fight. I'm going to be purchasing some new lawnmowers under the engagement of the emergency management occupation here in the city of Flint. They sold all of the equipment that we've had. This week, I've instructed our teams to go out and purchase new lawnmowers so we wouldn't be solely dependent upon our county partners to cut grass inside the city for us. We'll be enlisting and trying to execute upon more personnel and the redirection of personnel to try to get some of these the grass cuts and lots cut. But everybody has to do their part. Everyone has to do their part. We're aggressively going to do it strategically with a high logic, low emotion of type of engagement from the city of Flint. We will be going through and trying to fight blight, and Republic Services has already enlisted their services into that war. But when we clean up our city, let's keep it clean and don't allow anyone to dump garbage or debris in our city. And so, let's focus really where we are. We have some cleaning to do, but let's not do it every week for people just to come here and throw trash in our community. And Gary, I know you had talked about, rolling blight trucks and doing some different things of that nature. Do you have anything to list in what I just said?
No, if I didn't say earlier, once we completed the compost today, and again, I really can't apologize enough to you guys. When I drove the city earlier this week before we started attacking it, the extent of the material that was out there, I'm embarrassed to admit, was higher than I thought. And we attacked that first, and then we wanted to shift gears today and put people out in cleaning up the bulk and blight. And there are several trucks rolling through the city as we speak right now, going after specific piles and specific areas that were identified earlier through our travels in the city. And I believe there's going to be a phone number that will be shared that residents can call so that we can start identifying ones that even we may not know about and the city may not know about, and start addressing those and improve the quality of life for those residents that are living near that stuff.
Right. And we want to make the goal having Flint, the cleanest city in Genesee County and pushing toward the state of Michigan. Everybody needs to join in this joyful movement of cleaning up our city, making our city stellar again, making our yards beautiful again, as soft restoration work has been going in for the lead pipe restoration projects that has been left undone for many years. All those things are moving forward, but let's all work together. We're not perfect by any means, but it doesn't mean that we can't strive and continue to try to walk that walk to get to that particular point with that high achievement that we will probably never achieve, but we continue to strive and move toward that goal. And so Dr. Fairholden and Dr. Hawkins, the quality of health in our community, how does it relate to blight in our community? Is there any correlation to blighted communities or ill community, or am I just thinking out loud? Dr.
You're like all the way in my wheelhouse now. There's a direct correlation. The experience that people have when they're in their community affects them both physically, mentally, socially, and spiritually. People are more likely to be engaged and more active and activated in their community when they feel safe and when they have an experience of a community that's welcoming and inviting. The research literally tells us if you're driving down the road and you've got some trash in your car, your mind has this unconscious signal. You are more apt to throw your trash out of your car window in a community where you already see trash than in a community where you don't see trash. So this whole thing around blight elimination is so important because if you think about it, the people who are living in communities that have these problems, oftentimes the majority of the people in those communities are not the ones contributing to it. It takes one or two bad actors to do something. And then the people who live in those communities that I call the Flint warriors, the people who have held on. You know, the interesting thing about the demographic and population shift in Flint is a lot of people that moved out of Flint didn't move out of Genesee County. They just left the city of Flint. So if we want people and to really honor these Flint warriors and the people who dug their heels in and said, this is my city. This is my city and I'm going to stay here. It needs to be a city that when they look out their door, they're proud of. And I don't think that that should be a privilege. I don't think that that should be inequitable. We shouldn't have communities that are well-maintained and beautiful, and similarly other communities where people think and feel it's okay. And a lot of people do this unconsciously to discard trash and waste and other things. All of our residents deserve the protection and the preservation of their community and the experience that they are somewhere where they are valued, where they are respected. Everybody deserves to live in a safe and supportive community and environment. And we know there's great variability all over the city and what that looks like. So this is exactly what we should be doing. Everybody, every one of us deserves that.
So before I go to Dr. Reynolds, so there is a such thing in of what I call blight of mind, right? We can look at the physical portions, but we have to clean up the blight of mind. And so therefore we can actually go forth to clean it up in the physical.
Hello?
Yes. Are you there, Dr. Reynolds? Yep. Dr. Reynolds, I think we just lost him again. So blight of mind, Dr. Furholden, blight of mind is something that we have to also go forth and try to clean up the blight of mind in order to actually physically get it done in our community. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it's like a one-to-one relationship, right? So like I said, if people see a blighted community, they're more likely to add to the blight. Think about it yourself as an individual. We've all been working at home. Everybody's footprint in their own home has increased. And I'm sure we can all relate to everybody has had a couple of days where they got really busy. If you did not wash your dishes that night before you went to bed, you are more apt the next morning to keep throwing your dishes in the sink. And then eventually what you have is a pile of dishes in the sink. So if we just stop and do the work and make sure that we're not letting that lapse during this period, there is an unconscious signal that gets sent to the brain. It's not okay to do that here. But if people see trash and they see blight, they're unconsciously contributing to that because there's this signal that gets sent that this is okay here. And it's not okay. And so we also have to make sure that the physical space is conducive for people to unconsciously make better choices. And then these conversations and the actual movement where we all collectively say we want our city to be beautiful and we want it to be respectable for all of our residents, then deals with a conscious conversation around it. But it's both. And so the city services and the blight removal is so critical, as well as the intentional, direct, conscious conversation. But you are exactly right. There is a blight of mind, and we can deal with that if we actually deal with it physically.
Right. And so those are in the Facebook world here. You can email fightblight@cityofflint.com, or you can dial 237-2090. Fightblight@cityofflint.com. If you want to enlist in the fight, we will be working with our partners. Are going to come on board to be able to help galvanize our fighting force against blight, but we will be aggressively. And Pastor Hawkins, and we'll get Dr. Reynolds back on a call here. But Pastor Hawkins and Deborah, I know we're all residents of the city of Flint, but Pastor Hawkins especially, I want people to understand when I say that we're going to be aggressively going after those who dump garbage in our communities. When we start catching these individuals, it's going to be a certain level of a plea for those individuals or criticism of the way that we're attacking those violators. At that particular point, I want all of you that's listening to me now to say that, hey, he gave everybody fair warning as they started to clean up, because this is a strong, spirited community. We cannot afford for our spirit to be fractured and or broke. There is no prosthetic for an amputated spirit. I will not allow that to happen under this administration, and with a team environment and a team focus to getting us all to a better place. The future belongs to all of us, and especially our children, and we're going to leave this place in a much better condition than we found it. And moving and shifting with that, the Black Lives Matter Advisory Council, Pastor Jeffery Hawkins has been selected to be the chairperson of that from his many credentials, not because he's a strong man and faith leader, but also with his professional training as a mediator, and also with his long, extensive background with the ceasefire measurements that was a nationwide movement to stop violence, especially in communities that had been plagued with a lot of violence. But now we need to reverse that thinking and talk about how we can police and patrol our community better to have a better engagement. And when Pastor Hawkins and I were growing up, I remember in kindergarten classes, a police officer would come and they used to tell us, a man in blue is a friend to you. But somehow we have got reversed in that, and we need to reestablish that and also do it with the advice and advisement of an advisory council that has been established here in the city of Flint, and Pastor Hawkins is the chairperson. Pastor Hawkins, can you tell us a little bit about what we're doing with that?
Absolutely, Mayor. And again, thank you again for allowing me to assist and for really putting this together. One of the things I wanted to just kind of piggyback from off the show and commend Dr. Furholder for saying is,
Go ahead, Pastor Hawkins.
Yes, sir. Is that this is will be a diverse group that not only have different backgrounds, but see things through a different lens, and so that way we can come together for the common good of the city, and then for the protecting of the city and the protecting of the police, to make sure that things are done in an adequate way. We know that we have responsibility as residents, but also law enforcement has responsibility as law enforcement. And so just to be able to deal with the issues that we face here, and hopes that we don't see a George Floyd situation, but to deal with our situations here and say that we understand policing. We just want fairness in all things. I always say that we're not asking for favor and in no respect. We're asking for fairness. And fairness should be something that should be expected for all people that's in the city. So that's what we're going to do. We know that we're probably about 2 weeks out as we continue to pick individuals for this process, and just looking forward to working together as a community of those who will be on the advisory board to say we are going to do our part to make the city a greater place.
Right. And so ultimately, as we move forward with this process, 64 applicants have applied for this to be on this body. But ultimately, is the goal in your mind, or Dr. Verholden, because you were in Baltimore doing this thing, is that we know we have elements in it about what happens in this country and the dominant tendencies of not really respecting Black and brown people, but should the law enforcement just be an engagement where we have when we have lawbreakers and that people are to protect and serve? I mean, should we, how do we get to that particular point? And did Baltimore ever get to that particular point, Dr. Verholden, with the help of their advisory council or whatever committee was established to help in that area?
Well, so it's interesting. One of the phenomenon that we've actually witnessed about to happen is one where community will be more engaged. And Pastor Hawkins, as the chair of that committee, I have no doubt will make sure that the voice of community gets elevated. But what I know for a fact, and Dr. Reynolds will tell you, this is something that we share. We are both the children of police officers. His father was a police officer. My father was a police officer. And Dr. Reynolds' brother is a police officer. So he's a double over. He's the son and the brother of a police officers. So there's no anti-police sentiment here. But one of the things that we saw during this season is I don't think it has been safe for police officers who are well-meaning, who came into this profession under what called to them was the service, right? Was having a respectable profession where they could be of service, many of them to communities that they either came from or communities that they had some vested interest in. And so this transformation that is possible with a more participatory approach, I think is exactly where we, need to be heading. And you're right, this notion around protect has been focused almost solely on identifying bad actors and throwing the book at them. But that was not the only mission of the police, nor is that the only intention that many of our officers had when they came into the profession. But it hasn't been safe for them either. We've heard stories now throughout this season all across the country about police officers, sheriffs, etc., standing with people, marching with them, taking all their gear off and moving from the sideline and standing with the people. Some of these officers are also residents in the same communities that they serve. This is not some simple problem that we can address overnight, but if we're willing to roll up our sleeves and do the work, we can emerge with a system that is actually consistent with the goal. In Minneapolis, they literally have gone on record and said, when we look at our 911 calls, the majority of their 911 calls are for mental health services, health-related services like emergency medical, EMT, and fire services. But if you think about it, your classic police officer is not trained as a social worker or a mental health provider. Think about all the parents who have children with autism or mental disabilities, etc. Their biggest fear is that the police are going to encounter them and misconstrue their behavior as something criminal when in fact they're dealing with a disability or some kind of mental health challenge. So there's a whole lot about this system that doesn't work. And so this notion that we can come together, both the police department and the community at large, and that it'll be a diverse group of people who are willing to roll up our sleeves and do the work. This is exactly what we should be doing. And I'm appreciative that this season has called for that and also created a safe space for officers to step forward and speak out, because they've been disincentivized to do that up until now. They have had very little incentive. That is not how you get promoted, by marching with people, standing for equal rights. That is not a pathway to promotion. This whole season for me is like making my heart sing. I hope, just tremendous hope around who we can become and how we can emerge out of this.
Right, and Dr. Reynolds, I'm going to let you weigh in on that, and then we'll move to the
yes. As was mentioned, my father was a New York City police officer, internal affairs, but when he retired, he worked for the Urban League, and part of his job in the law enforcement minority manpower program was to come to Flint and start a program to recruit more black officers. So that was one step, if you bring up the history. And then I will also say two of the challenges that are faced are transparency in the process. If there is an investigation, a deliberation, that the information is released and that everybody knows what happened in an incident. But another critical factor is protection of the officers who have the courage to step forward and make a statement, because we don't want a good officer out in the community calling for backup, getting none, because there's a agreement among a group of problem officers that, well, we're not going to back up this officer because she objected to our back. So we must have transparency and protection and the community through this Black Lives Matter advisory council for access, so that in the community can step up also.
Right. And with that, we're going to transition into our last point about the pandemic, because it's still amongst us. We have about 5 more minutes of our Facebook burst, educational edification, messaging to our community members. And I want people to know that we've been doing this for 8 years as an elected official, as a city council person, as a state representative, and now as mayor. And this is just to encourage people to be a part of a solution and not part of confusion. And so we do that with that thrust. Dr. Reynolds, where are we at with our pandemic and our pandemic observation, and what we need to be doing still?
Being in Region 1 of the governor's plan, which includes the major metro areas, Detroit, Pontiac, and Flint for southeastern Michigan, we are now at Phase 4. Now, Phase 4 shows that there's more businesses opening, and everybody's looking forward to Phase 5 when the beauty parlors, salons, and other places will open. But remember, just because we are in Phase 4, there's 6 phases. We are in the middle phase, and the middle phase doesn't end on a date certain. It means sometimes we go forward to 5, and sometimes because of the dynamics of the disease or our non-compliance with the basic principles, we have to back up to Phase 4 again. So we must be vigilant. We must wear our face masks. We must wash our hands. We must avoid large crowds. We call that physical distancing now. We still should try to avoid crowds that have more than 10 people. Now, in other gatherings where it's more appropriate, it's outside, a large number may be allowed, but we must be vigilant. We must be careful, because every decision we make protects the other people in our community and in our household. And remember, the number of deaths for Black residents of Michigan sometimes has consistently been 2 to 3 times higher than how we're represented in the population. So there are many reasons for that. We did not have stay-at-home jobs. We lived in housing where we shared with other members of the family. So all these things contributed. Plus, we had pre-existing health conditions that were not properly treated, which comes to our next point. If you have a pre-existing medical condition, that means if you've had a long-term condition like diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, lung conditions, kidney disease, you're on dialysis, you must maintain your connection with the people treating you. That's your doctor, your dialysis centers, making sure that your equipment is renewed, that you refill your prescriptions. So you must call your provider. Now, if you don't have one, you can call the Genesee Health Plan, and they will connect you with insurance and services. If you don't have a doctor, you can contact the Hamilton Family Health Network or the Genesee Health system. So there are places where you can get treated, and it does not matter if you are a citizen or not. Step forward, make the phone call. There are people who are there to help you, because we are all in this together as residents of Flint and Genesee County, and this coronavirus knows no boundaries.
Right. And I'm going to push back to Dr. Verholden for another point about areas of super spread, because now we have activities for graduations for seniors, well-deserved, activities to celebrate. But I've seen a lot of people not wearing masks as I drive through a community or parks. How much in danger are we of another super spread, Dr. Verholden?
Well, anytime you have people coming together, you just increase the likelihood that somebody who is an active case will expose somebody who is not an active case. And so, to underscore what Dr. Reynolds said, it is important that we continue to maintain those good practices around protection. And protection is bidirectional. You are protecting yourself from others, and primarily protecting others from you. And the more that people engage, the more likely it is that they will become exposed. We know that now some undetermined, but more than we previously thought, number of people will actually walk safely. But it doesn't mean that they're still not able to spread the virus. So the practicing of the protocols is so important. And even if you don't have symptoms, if you have attended a large gathering, 10 or more, or even 10 people, if you're interacting with people outside of your household, the imperative is to continue to practice what it takes to protect you from others, and more importantly, to protect others from you. I would think it would be tragic and a real spiritual burden on somebody if they attended an event, came home, and then got somebody in their household sick, especially a vulnerable member, an elderly person, or somebody with an immune condition, etc. And so I just want to underscore for people, because, you know, like Dr. Reynolds said, we're in the middle. And that doesn't mean we're in the middle chronologically. We're just in the middle as far as the phases of what this disease looks like based on what we know and when we think we'll be fully recovered. And our ability to move through those phases and actually get to a period where the population at large is protected is going to be hinged on the actions and behaviors of the people in this community. So I just implore people to continue to practice the protocols. Wear your mask, wash your hands. When you're out and engaged in public, honor those protocols. Continue to work on yourself individually. Boost your immune system. Do not go out and expose others if you have any symptoms, and appreciate that it's possible, if you've been actively engaged, that you might actually not have symptoms, but still be at risk for infecting others.
Right. And as we close out with our Facebook Birth program, I want to remind people to do your census. It is very vitally important that everybody engage in their census count. Please fill out your forms and send those forms back in. Please complete your census form. The next decade of resources and revenues are going to be dependent upon it. I cannot encourage you more to do your census. Also, the Blue Ribbon Committee Task Force has just concluded its report. The report can be picked up off of cityofflint.com, our website. Please observe for all sectors that we had advice in. You can take our recommendations and how to get back to a safe, normal in our society. Republic waste collection is going to be caught up by the 1st of next week. We will be on schedule, and they have enlisted in our blight fight, as we ask all of you to enlist in the blight fight to make our community cleaner than all the rest. Flint is going to start leading the nation and our county and our state in many activities, but we need our partners to be positive in their thinking, positive in their engagement, to eliminate the blight of mind. And so I want to thank you, residents of the city of Flint, for being just that wonderful as you are, strong-spirited. And we're going to, Gary, thank you. Well, I think Gary just dropped, but thank you for being here. And Pastor Hawkins, can you close us out in prayer? I want to say I love you, Mom. And Sharon Riley, congratulations for being back home. We love you, and we're going to continue to encourage you. And Pastor Hawkins, if you can be so kind. Pastor Hawkins? Well, maybe I lost Pastor Hawkins. Gary, are you still there?
Yes, sir.
Well, you know what I'm going to do, Gary? I know you're a strong man of faith, and I'm going to have you as Republican representative, not Republic representative, not Republican, Republic representative, waste collection. But I'm going to ask you to close us out in prayer today.
Oh, thank you, sir, for this honor. Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for this opportunity that we had to come together as a community. Think that people actually care about these matters and the lessons that were learned. Personally, I thank you for the opportunity to look through the entire message that you shared today. And I just thank you for all the lessons that I learned as a gentleman that lives in this community and services this community. I ask that you please keep residents of the city of Flint safe, keep them protected, be with our drivers as we're servicing them. And then, Lord, I just thank you for all that you've given to us. You have blessed us abundantly, and every time we ask, you're there for us. Again, Lord, thank you for all. We ask all this in your precious Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
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 And thank you all for that. Until next week, we'll be talking with our Facebook family again. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Dr. Verholden. And thank you, Dr. Reynolds. And thank Pastor Hawkins. Thank you. And I'll talk with you guys. Awesome. Bless.
God bless.